The massive space station hung in the void like a jewel against the stars. Its silver hull reflected the light of 3 distant suns as ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports. The Harmony Station was built for moments like this. When different species came together to talk instead of fight. Princess Lyrelei walked through the main corridor with slow, careful steps. Her blue skin caught the station's lights, and the small crystals on her forehead glowed softly. She was young for a Zephyrian royal, but her mind was sharp like a blade. Today's peace talks would decide if 3 systems would go to war or find another way. The meeting room was full of alien faces. The Croton delegates sat in their heavy armor, their red eyes watching everyone. The bird-like Avix clicked their beaks as they spoke in their musical language. In one corner, the insect-like Thex moved their many arms as they argued about trade routes. Lyrelei took her seat at the main table and looked around. These talks had been going on for days with no real progress. Each species wanted something different, and no one wanted to give up what they had. "We are still stuck on the same problems," said Commander Vex of the Croton. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "The Avix want the sky routes. We need the mineral rights. The Thex claim everything belongs to them already." The tall Avix delegate, Skyweaver Zara, ruffled her golden feathers. "Our people have flown these paths for hundreds of years. You cannot simply take them because you have bigger ships now. Your people also did not file proper claims with the Galactic Council," buzzed Hive Speaker Nex of the Thex. "Legal ownership is clear in our records." Lyrelei had heard these same words many times before. She was about to speak when the station's lights flickered. A moment later, alarms began to ring throughout the corridors. "What is happening?" demanded Commander Vex. Before anyone could answer, a new voice spoke from the doorway. "Pirates, 3 ships coming in fast from the dark side of the moon." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. He was clearly human. Shorter than most of the other delegates, with brown skin and dark hair. His uniform was simple and looked like it had seen better days. A patch on his shoulder showed the symbols of the human colonial navy. "And you are?" asked Lyrelei, studying this newcomer with interest. "Captain Marcus Chen, Earth Colonial Navy. My ship had engine trouble, so I came here for repairs." He walked into the room like he belonged there, even though everyone else was staring at him. "I was in the dock when my sensors picked up the incoming ships. They're not broadcasting any friendly signals." Commander Vex made a sound like a laugh, but not a happy one. "One human thinks he can tell us about danger? Your species has been in space for what, 50 years? We have been fighting battles since before your world knew fire." Marcus looked at the big Croton without fear. "Maybe so, but I know pirates when I see them. And these ones are moving in a pattern I recognize. They're going to hit the power station first, then the defense grid. After that, this place will be helpless." The station shook slightly, and the lights flickered again. Through the big windows they could see bright flashes in the distance where the station's outer defenses were firing. "The human might be right," said Skyweaver Zara, her feathers turning darker with worry. "Our ships are not ready for battle. We came here for peace talks, not war." "None of our vessels are prepared," admitted Hive Speaker Nex. "This was supposed to be a safe meeting place." Lyrelei felt a cold fear in her stomach. The station's defenses were not strong enough to stop 3 pirate ships. If they broke through, everyone here would be captured or killed. The peace talks would end in blood, and the 3 systems would probably go to war anyway. "What do you suggest, Captain Chen?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "We don't fight them ship to ship. We can't win that way. But pirates are greedy. They want to capture this station, not destroy it. That means they have to come inside." "So," growled Commander Vex, "so we turn this place into a trap. Use their greed against them." Marcus walked to the room's control panel and called up a map of the station. "Look here. The main docking bays are too well defended, so they'll come in through the cargo ports. Once they're inside, we can use the station's own systems against them." "That is impossible," said Hive Speaker Nex. "The cargo areas have no weapons. But they have artificial gravity, life support, And emergency doors, Marcus replied. Plus whatever supplies are stored down there. Give me 20 people and access to the maintenance tunnels, and I can make those pirates wish they had stayed home. The station shook again, harder this time. One of the outer defense platforms exploded in a bright flash of light. We are running out of time, said Lyrelai. Commander Vex, can your soldiers work with Captain Chen? The Croton looked like he had tasted something bitter. Work with a human? Our warriors do not need help from primitive species. Your warriors will be dead in an hour if we do nothing, Marcus said calmly. I'm offering you a chance to live. Take it or don't. Makes no difference to me. Another explosion shook the station. This time, pieces of metal floated past the windows. I will go with the human, announced Skyweaver Zara suddenly. My people are good at moving through small spaces. We can help. As will mine, buzzed Hive Speaker Nex. The Thex have always been good at building traps. Commander Vex looked around the room at the other delegates, then at Princess Lyrelai. Finally, he made a sound like a sigh. Fine. But if this human plan fails, I will personally throw him out an airlock. Fair enough, said Marcus. But it won't fail. For the next hour, the most unlikely group in the galaxy worked together. Croton soldiers followed Marcus through maintenance tunnels they would never have fit in alone. Avix flew through the upper levels of the cargo bays, setting up things Marcus called surprises. Thex workers used their many arms to build barriers and traps that looked like random piles of cargo boxes. Lyrelai found herself crawling through a tunnel behind Marcus, carrying a portable gravity generator that was almost too heavy for her to lift. Why are you doing this? She asked him as they moved through the dark tunnel. You could have just fixed your ship and left. This is not your fight. Marcus stopped and looked back at her. In the dim light of the tunnel, his eyes looked very serious. Where I come from, we have a saying. When someone needs help, you help them. Doesn't matter if they're human or alien or something in between. Right is right. Even if they think your species is primitive? Marcus grinned. Especially then. Sometimes the best way to prove people wrong is to show them instead of telling them. The station's emergency lights started flashing red. Somewhere in the distance they could hear the sound of metal being cut open. They're inside, Marcus said. Everyone ready? Voices answered him from all over the cargo bay through their communication devices. Croton, Avix, Thex, and even a few other species who had joined them, all working together for the first time anyone could remember. Remember, Marcus spoke into his communicator. Wait for my signal. Let them get deep into the bay before we spring the trap. They waited in the darkness as heavy footsteps echoed through the cargo area below. The pirates were being careful, but not careful enough. They had no idea that dozens of beings were watching them from the shadows. There, whispered Lyrelai, pointing through a small window in the tunnel. I count 15 of them. They look like Vorthan mercenaries. Nasty bunch, Marcus agreed. But they're spreading out just like I thought they would. Skyweaver Zara, you ready up there? Ready, human Marcus, came the reply through the communicator. Hive Speaker Nex? All traps are prepared, buzzed the Thex leader. Commander Vex? A long pause, then. Croton warriors are always ready. Marcus took a deep breath. All right then. Let's show these pirates what happens when they mess with a peace conference. Now. What happened next was like a deadly dance. The artificial gravity in different parts of the cargo bay suddenly changed direction, sending surprised pirates floating into the ceiling or slamming into the floor. Emergency doors closed at just the right moments, separating the pirate groups from each other. Cargo containers fell from their storage racks right where Thex calculations said they would do the most damage. The Avix dove from the upper levels like golden arrows, using their claws and speed to take down pirates who tried to escape. Croton. Soldiers charged from hidden positions with their powerful weapons blazing. Thex workers moved like a wave of arms and legs, capturing pirates in nets that appeared from nowhere. In less than 10 minutes, it was over. The pirates were either captured, unconscious, or floating in space after being pushed out through airlocks that opened and closed very quickly. Marcus climbed down from the maintenance tunnel and looked around at the cargo bay. It was a mess, but they had won. More importantly, everyone had worked together to do it. Impossible, muttered Commander Vex, looking at the captured pirates. We have been trying to coordinate our forces for years. How did a human make it work in 1 hour? Because humans are crazy enough to think it should work, said Skyweaver Zara, preening her feathers with pride. Sometimes crazy is exactly what you need. Lyralee walked over to Marcus, who was checking to make sure all the pirates were properly secured. That was impressive, Captain Chen. You made warriors out. 6 months had passed since the Harmony Station incident, and Princess Lyralee found herself looking forward to her diplomatic missions in a way she never had before. The reason was simple. Captain Marcus Chen had agreed to serve as her strategic advisor. What had started as a temporary assignment had become something much more interesting. Marcus brought a completely different way of thinking to problems that had stumped galactic diplomats for years. Where others saw impossible situations, he saw puzzles waiting to be solved. The Deltari situation makes no sense, Lyralee said as their ship approached the troubled world. She was sitting across from Marcus in her private office, reviewing reports on her tablet. They have been fighting the same civil war for 20 years. Every time someone tries to make peace, the fighting gets worse. Marcus looked out the window at the planet below. Even from space, they could see the dark clouds of smoke rising from several continents. What's the war about? Resources. The northern hemisphere has all the water. The southern hemisphere has all the minerals. Neither side will share. Sounds simple enough. Why hasn't anyone just forced them to trade? Lyralee made a sound like a laugh, but not a happy one. The Galactic Council tried that 15 years ago. Both sides agreed to the trade deal, then immediately started fighting about the details. Who controls the trade routes? What the exchange rates should be? Which side gets to inspect the other's shipments? It turned into a bigger mess than before. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. What if they're fighting about the wrong thing? What do you mean? Well, you said they need water and minerals. But what do they actually want? Lyralee frowned. I do not understand the difference. Okay, think about it this way. When humans are thirsty, we need water. But what we want is to not be thirsty anymore. Sometimes those are the same thing. Sometimes they're not. The ship landed at the planet's largest spaceport, which was really just a flat piece of ground with some buildings around it. Most of the real ports had been destroyed in the fighting. As they walked down the ramp, they were met by a small group of beings who looked like they had not eaten well in a long time. Princess Lyralee, said the leader, a tall Deltari with gray skin and tired eyes. I am Prime Minister Kalon of the Northern Alliance. We are honored by your visit, though I fear there is little we can do to make you comfortable here. Thank you, Prime Minister. This is Captain Chen, my advisor. Kalon looked at Marcus with confusion. A human? I was not aware that your people employed humans in diplomatic roles. Captain Chen has unique insights into conflict resolution, Lyralee said carefully. He has been very helpful in recent negotiations. They were taken to what had once been a government building, but now looked more like a military bunker. The windows were boarded up and guards stood at every door. Inside, the walls were covered with maps showing battle lines and supply routes. As you can see, said Prime Minister Kalon, our situation is difficult. The Southern Coalition controls most of the mineral deposits, but they have no water. We have the rivers and lakes, but our industrial capacity is limited without their metals. Why not just trade? Asked Marcus. Kalon stared at him like he had said something incredibly stupid. Trade? Captain Chen, we have been trying to arrange fair trade for 2 decades. Every agreement falls apart because they demand impossible terms. What kind of terms? They want to inspect our water treatment facilities to make sure we are not cheating them on quality. But if we let them into our territory, they could sabotage our entire water system. Meanwhile, they refuse to let us inspect their mining operations, claiming it would reveal trade secrets. Marcus nodded slowly. So neither side trusts the other? Of course not. They have been our enemies for 20 years. After the meeting, Lyralee and Marcus walked through the city. It had once been beautiful, with tall spires and flowing gardens. Now most of the buildings were damaged and the gardens were dead because there was not enough water to keep them alive during wartime. This is heartbreaking, said Lyralee. These people are destroying themselves over something that should be simple to fix. Maybe it is simple, said Marcus. Just not in the way everyone thinks. What do you mean? Marcus stopped walking and pointed to a group of children playing in the street. They had made a game out of trading small rocks for drops of water from a broken fountain. Look at them. They're already doing what the adults can't figure out. They are just playing, are they? Or are they solving the same problem their parents are fighting about? Marcus watched the children for a moment. Lorelei, what if the Deltari don't really want to trade with each other? But they have to. Neither side can survive alone. Right, they have to trade. But they don't want to depend on their enemies. So they keep trying to make deals that would give them everything they need without having to trust the other side. Lorelei thought about this. That is impossible, though. Exactly. So they keep fighting instead of admitting that the war is pointless. Marcus started walking again. We need to talk to the Southern Coalition. The trip to the Southern Hemisphere took 3 hours by atmospheric shuttle. The landscape was completely different from the North Isle of red rocks and deep mines instead of rivers and forests. The Southern Coalition's capital was built into the side of a mountain, with metal towers rising up from the stone like mechanical trees. Governor Thane of the Southern Coalition was shorter than Prime Minister Callan but looked just as tired. His office was carved out of solid rock and decorated with samples of rare minerals. Princess Lorelei, we welcome you to our territory, he said formally. Though I must warn you that if you are here to suggest another trade agreement, you are wasting your time. Why? Asked Marcus. Governor Thane looked at him with suspicion. And you are? Captain Marcus Chen. I'm trying to understand why two groups of people who need each other keep trying to destroy each other instead. Because the Northerners cannot be trusted. Governor Thane slammed his hand on his desk, making the mineral samples jump. Every time we try to make a deal, they change the terms at the last minute. They want to control how we run our mines, how we process our metals, even how many workers we can employ. They say it is about fair trade, but really they want to take over our entire economy. And you do not trust them to deliver clean water, said Lorelei. Of course not. What is to stop them from poisoning our water supply if we displease them, or cutting off our water completely if they decide they want better terms? Governor Thane shook his head. We would rather die fighting than live as their slaves. That evening, Lorelei and Marcus sat in their temporary quarters, a small apartment that had been carved out of the mountain. Through the window they could see the lights of mining operations that ran all day and night. Both sides are right, said Lorelei. Neither can afford to trust the other, but they also cannot afford to keep fighting. So we give them something they can trust, said Marcus. What do you mean? Marcus pulled out a tablet and started sketching something. Look, the real problem isn't water or minerals. It's that each side is afraid the other will use their resources as a weapon. So we take that possibility away. How? We build something new. A joint facility run by both sides together that neither side can control alone. Marcus showed her his sketch. A water treatment and mineral processing plant, built right on the border between North and South. Each side provides what they have and each side gets what they need. But neither side can shut it down or poison it without hurting themselves too. Lorelei studied the drawing. That could work, but they would never agree to build it together. They hate each other too much. Then we don't ask them to build it together. We ask them to compete. Compete? Marcus grinned. We tell each side that we're going to build this facility with the other side, and whoever contributes more gets to name it and run the day-to-day operations. Suddenly, instead of fighting about whether to cooperate, they're fighting about who gets to cooperate more. It took 3 more weeks to set up the competition. Lorelei had to call in favors from the Galactic Development Bank to provide funding, and Marcus had to design a system where neither side could cheat, without the other side knowing immediately. The announcement was made simultaneously in both capitals. The Zephyrian Empire would sponsor the construction of a joint water and mineral processing facility. Whichever side contributed more resources to the project would get to name the facility and provide its first director. The response was immediate, and exactly what Marcus had predicted. Both sides started working frantically to outcontribute the other. The Northern Alliance began shipping water south faster than they ever had during peacetime. The Southern Coalition started moving minerals north at record speed. It is working, said Lorelei, watching the supply convoys from their ship in orbit. Look at those traffic patterns. They are trading more now than they ever did during the peace negotiations. And both sides think they're winning, added Marcus, which means neither side is looking for ways to sabotage the other. The facility was completed in 4 months. It was an impressive structure of metal and glass that straddled the border between North and South. Water flowed in from the north and was processed into various grades of purity. Minor. The neutral world of Sanctuary was known for 3 things: Beautiful sunsets, total privacy, and the fact that no government had any legal authority there. It was the perfect place for secrets. Princess Lyrelei stood at the window of their hotel room, watching the twin suns set over the crystal beaches. In a few hours, she would become someone completely different. Not a princess, not a diplomat, but simply a woman marrying the man she loved. Having second thoughts? Asked Marcus from behind her. She turned to look at him. He was wearing a simple blue suit that matched the color of her skin. Nothing fancy or royal about it, which was exactly what she wanted. No, she said. Are you? About marrying the most amazing woman in the galaxy? Not a chance. He walked over and took her hands in his. But I am worried about what happens after. Lyrelei, when this gets out ARRO, and it will get out eventually ARRO, people are going to be angry. Your people, my people, probably half the galaxy. Are you sure you want to deal with that? She had been asking herself the same question for weeks. Ever since the night she had finally admitted to herself that she was in love with Marcus Chen, she had known this moment would come. The moment when she would have to choose between her duty as a princess and her heart as a woman. Marcus, do you remember what you said to me on Deltari, about how people can be better than they think they are? Yeah, I think the galaxy can be better too. I think maybe it needs to see that different species can come together, not just for politics or trade, but for love. She squeezed his hands, and if they cannot accept that, then they are not as advanced as they think they are. The ceremony was small and simple. The officiant was a retired judge from the neutral worlds who had performed thousands of mixed-species marriages. The only witnesses were the hotel staff, who were paid very well to forget what they had seen. When the judge asked if they promised to love and support each other through whatever challenges might come, both Lyrelei and Marcus said yes without hesitation. When he pronounced them married, Marcus kissed her with a gentleness that made her crystals glow so brightly that everyone in the room had to look away. Mrs. Chen, Marcus whispered against her lips. Princess Chen, she corrected with a smile. I like the sound of that. They had planned to stay on Sanctuary for a week, but their honeymoon was cut short on the third day, when their ship's communication system started screaming with emergency signals. What is it? Asked Lyrelei, running onto the bridge still wearing her swimming clothes. Marcus was already at the controls, his face pale as he read the incoming messages. Pirates. No, not pirates. Something worse. He turned to look at her. Have you ever heard of something called the Devourers? Old stories. Legends about a species that consumed entire worlds, then disappeared into the dark between stars. She felt cold despite the warm air from the beach, but they are just myths. Not anymore. Marcus pulled up a star chart showing the outer rim of the galaxy. Red marks indicated worlds that had gone silent in the past month. There were dozens of them. Look at this pattern. Whatever these things are, they're working their way toward the core systems, and they're moving fast. The first distress call came from a mining colony called New Sparta. The message was broken and full of static, but the fear in the speaker's voice was clear. Ships like nothing we've ever seen. They don't want to capture anything. They're taking everything apart. Molecular level. Please, someone help us. Then the signal died. How long would it take us to get there? Asked Lyrelei. 4 hours. But Lyrelei, if these things really are what the legends say they are, we can't fight them alone. We are not going to fight them. We are going to see what we are dealing with, then warn everyone else. When they arrived at New Sparta, there was nothing left. No ships, no space station, no mining platforms. Even the asteroids that the colony had been built on were gone. In their place was empty space and a strange shimmer in the starlight, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Scan that area, said Lyrelei, pointing at the shimmer. Marcus ran every sensor their ship had. The results made no sense. It's like space itself has been changed somehow. The quantum structure is different, unstable. Changed how? I don't know. But whatever did this, it wasn't just destroying things. It was unmaking them, breaking them down into energy and raw materials. Marcus stared at the empty space where a colony of 50,000 people had lived just days ago. Lyrelei, we need to get this information back to our governments immediately. Both governments? All governments. Humans, Ephirian, everyone. Because if these things keep moving toward the core worlds... He did not need to finish the sentence. They both knew what would happen. Every inhabited world in the galaxy would end up like New Sparta Aurora, an empty patch of twisted space where life used to be. The trip back to Zephyrian space took 2 days. During that time, they received more distress calls from the Outer Rim. Each one was shorter than the last, as if the Devourers were getting faster at their terrible work. "We have to tell them about us," said Lyrelei, as they approached the capital world. "Now, Marcus, we are asking our people to work together against a threat that could destroy everyone. How can we do that if we are keeping secrets from each other? Your mother is going to hate me. My mother is going to hate both of us. But she will understand why we did it once she sees the data from New Sparta. The Zephyrian capital was a world of floating cities connected by bridges of solid light. The royal palace sat at the center of the largest city like a crystal crown. As their ship approached the landing pad, Lyrelei could see guards in formal armor waiting for them. "Princess Lyrelei," said the captain of the guard as they walked down the ramp. "Her Majesty wishes to see you immediately. There have been disturbing reports from the outer territories." "Yes, we have more information about that. Captain Chen will be accompanying me." The guard captain looked at Marcus with confusion. "The human? Your Majesty said nothing about bringing advisors to this meeting." "Captain Chen is no longer just my advisor," said Lyrelei, lifting her chin in the way she had been taught meant she would not be argued with. "He is my husband." If the guard captain had been drinking something, he would have choked on it. Instead, he just stared at her like she had announced that she was actually a space whale in disguise. "Your husband?" "Yes, we were married 3 days ago on Sanctuary. But that is not the important news right now. The important news is that something called the Devourers has destroyed at least 20 colony worlds and is moving toward the core systems." The throne room was exactly as imposing as it was supposed to be. Queen Vexara sat on a throne made from a single massive crystal, surrounded by advisors and courtiers in elaborate robes. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into shadows, and the walls were covered with tapestries showing the history of the Zephyrian Empire. Lyrelei had been in this room thousands of times, but today felt different. Today she was not just a princess coming to report to her queen. She was a daughter who had to explain to her mother why she had just married someone from a species most Zephyrians considered primitive. "Lyrelei," said Queen Vexara as they approached the throne, "we have received troubling reports from our outer territories. Entire colonies have gone silent. Our military commanders are demanding immediate action, but we do not know what we are fighting. Your Majesty, I have detailed sensor data from one of the attacked systems." Lyrelei held out a data pad. "But first I must tell you something important. Can it wait? We may be facing the greatest threat in our empire's history." "It is related to that threat, Mother." Lyrelei took a deep breath. "I have married Captain Marcus Chen of the Human Colonial Navy. We were wed 3 days ago." The throne room went completely silent. Even the advisors who had been whispering to each other stopped talking. Queen Vexara stared at her daughter for what felt like a very long time. "You married a human?" "Yes, without permission, without a proper ceremony, without even informing your family." "Yes." Queen Vexara stood up from her throne. She was tall even for a Zephyrian, and when she was angry, the crystals on her forehead glowed like miniature stars. "Do you have any idea what you have done? The political implications? The scandal this will cause?" "Your Majesty," said Marcus, stepping forward. "With respect, we have bigger problems right now than politics." Every person in the throne room turned to stare at him. Speaking directly to the queen without being asked was the kind of thing that could get someone thrown into prison. Or worse. "You dare to interrupt us?" asked Queen Vexara, her voice cold enough to freeze water. "I dare to try to save your empire," Marcus replied calmly. "And mine. And everyone else's." He activated a holographic projector and showed the sensor readings from New Sparta, the empty space where a thriving colony had been. The twisted quantum signature left behind. The pattern of attacks moving steadily toward the core worlds. "This is what we're dealing with," Marcus continued. "Something that can unmake entire worlds in a matter of hours. Something that's heading straight for every inhabited system in the galaxy. Now we can stand here arguing about who married whom, or we can figure out how to stop this before there's nobody left to argue with." Queen Vexara studied the holographic display. "These readings, they match old legends about something called the Devourers. The war room in the royal palace had been built to plan campaigns against neighboring empires, not to face the end of everything. Maps of the galaxy covered every wall, marked with red symbols showing worlds that had gone silent. Each day there were more red symbols. Marcus stood before a massive holographic display, pointing out fleet positions to a room full of Zephyrian military commanders. Most of them looked like they would rather be anywhere else than taking orders from a human. The Devourer ships move in groups of 3, he explained, highlighting different areas of the display. They hit a system fast, break everything down to basic materials, then move on. The whole process takes about 6 hours for a small colony, 12 hours for a major world. Admiral Corex, the senior Zephyrian fleet commander, crossed his arms over his chest. Captain Chen, we appreciate your analysis, but our own intelligence suggests these attacks are random. There is no pattern we can predict. There's always a pattern, Marcus replied patiently. Look at the timing. They're not hitting the richest worlds or the most heavily defended ones first. They're taking out communication relays and supply depots. They're isolating the core worlds before they attack them. Impossible, said another commander. That would require strategic thinking. These are mindless devourers, not military tacticians. Marcus turned to look at the commander. Sir, with respect, something that can unmake matter at the molecular level is not mindless. We're not dealing with space monsters. We're dealing with an intelligence that understands warfare better than we do. How can you be certain? Asked Admiral Corex. Because they're using the same strategy humans would use. Marcus highlighted a series of attacks on the outer rim. Cut the enemy's supply lines, isolate their forces, then roll up their defenses from the weakest point. It's basic military doctrine. Princess Lyrelei, now wearing a military uniform instead of diplomatic robes, stepped forward. Our sensor data supports Captain Chen's analysis. The Devourers are not attacking randomly. They are preparing for a major assault on the core systems. When? Asked Admiral Corex. Marcus studied the pattern of red marks on the galaxy map. Based on their current rate of advance, they'll reach the outer defense perimeter in 2 weeks. After that, he shrugged, maybe another week before they hit the capital worlds. The room went quiet. 3 weeks to prepare for a threat that had already destroyed dozens of colonies without taking any apparent damage. What do you recommend? Asked Queen Vexara, who had been watching from her seat at the head of the long conference table. We don't wait for them to come to us, said Marcus. We hit them while they're spread out, before they can concentrate their forces for the final push. Our fleets are not strong enough, protested Admiral Corex. We have seen the reports from worlds that tried to fight them. Entire defense forces destroyed without inflicting any damage. That's because they fought the wrong way, Marcus replied. Look, your ships are built for civilized warfare. Standoff engagements, precision strikes, minimal casualties. These things don't care about casualties. They just want to consume everything they can reach. So what do you suggest? Asked Queen Vexara. We fight dirty. Hit-and-run attacks. Ramming speed. Self-destruct sequences. Everything your military manuals say not to do because it's too dangerous or wasteful. Marcus looked around the room at the shocked faces of the Zephyrian commanders. Your Majesty, my people have a saying. When someone is trying to eat you, you bite back. Before anyone could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. A communications officer ran into the room with a data pad in her hands. Your Majesty, priority message from the outer defense line. Queen Vexara took the pad and read it quickly. Her face went pale. The Devourers have accelerated their advance. They will reach our territory in 3 days, not 2 weeks. That's impossible, said Admiral Corex. Our calculations, were wrong. Marcus finished grimly. They must have been holding back, making us think we had more time than we actually do. He turned to face Queen Vexara. Your Majesty, we need those human reinforcements now. The alliance is still being negotiated. The human government is concerned about committing their forces to what they consider a losing battle. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. A losing battle? This isn't about winning or losing anymore. This is about survival. If the Devourers take the core worlds, there won't be anywhere left to run to. Perhaps, said Admiral Corex coldly, your people have realized that allying with us is pointless. Why should they risk their ships to defend our territory? Because our territory is next, Marcus snapped. These things aren't going to stop at the Zephyrian border. They're going to keep going until they've consumed the entire galaxy. Captain Chen is right, said Lyrelei. We have intercepted Devourer communications. Their goal is not conquest. It is complete consumption of all organized matter in this galactic arm. You can understand their communications? Asked Queen Vexara. Parts of them, they use mathematical concepts that are universal. What we have decoded suggests they see all life as an inefficient use of resources that should be reorganized. Another alarm sounded, this one even louder than the first. The communications officer was back, this time looking terrified. Your Majesty, we have 3 Devourer ships entering the outer system. They will reach the 4th planet in 6 hours. The 4th planet was Zephyrus Minor, home to 2 billion civilians and the Empire's largest military shipyard. Admiral Corex, take the entire home fleet and intercept them, ordered Queen Vexara. Your Majesty, we should evacuate the planet first, There is no time for evacuation, said Marcus. And there's nowhere to evacuate them to. We have to stop those ships here. With what? Our entire fleet combined is smaller than a single Devourer vessel. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked up with the expression Lyrelay had learned to recognize, the one that meant he had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. What if we don't try to destroy them? He said slowly. What do you mean? Asked Queen Vexara. These things consume matter and energy, right? They break everything down to rebuild it the way they want. But what if we gave them something they couldn't digest? Something that would poison them from the inside? Admiral Corex frowned. What kind of poison could affect machines that can unmake matter itself? Information, said Marcus. Bad information. He walked over to the holographic display and pulled up the technical specifications for a Zephyrian battleship. Look, every computer system in your fleet uses quantum processors, right? Massive parallel calculations, unlimited storage capacity. Yes, but what if we programmed them with a logic virus? Something that would cause infinite loops, impossible calculations, recursive paradoxes? Then we let the Devourers consume the ships. Lyrelay's eyes widened as she understood what Marcus was suggesting. When they try to process the information from our computer systems, the virus would spread through their own network. Exactly. It might not destroy them, but it could slow them down, confuse them, maybe even turn them against each other. That is insane, said Admiral Corex. You are asking us to sacrifice our entire fleet on the hope that a computer virus will somehow affect alien technology we do not understand. I'm asking you to try something that might work instead of doing something we know will fail, Marcus replied. Admiral, your standard tactics have been tested against these things. The results are on the walls around us. He gestured at the red marks covering the galaxy map. We need to try something they won't expect. Queen Vexara stood up from her chair. How long would it take to prepare this virus? The Zephyrian computer systems are already more advanced than anything my people have, said Marcus. Princess Lyrily and I could probably write the basic code in a few hours. Programming it into every ship in the fleet would take longer. We have perhaps 5 hours before the Devourers reach weapons range of Zephyrus Minor, said Admiral Corex. Then we had better get started. The next few hours were the most intense of Marcus's life. Working alongside Lyrelay and a team of Zephyrian computer specialists, he helped create what they called the Paradox Protocol Predewero, a collection of unsolvable mathematical problems, infinite loops, and logical contradictions designed to crash any system that tried to process them. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to damage the Devourer systems directly, it would simply ask them questions that had no answers, give them calculations that could never be completed, and present them with logical statements that contradicted themselves. Will this really work? Asked Lyrelay as they uploaded the final code to the fleet computers. I have no idea, Marcus admitted. But it's better than just sitting here waiting to die. Admiral Corex's voice came over the communication system. All ships, we are moving to intercept the Devourer vessels. Remember, our goal is not to win this battle. Our goal is to give them something to think about. The battle was visible from the palace through powerful telescopes. 3 massive Devourer ships, each one the size of a small moon, advancing steadily toward Zephyrus Minor. The entire Zephyrian home fleet moving to meet them on nearly 200 ships that looked like tiny sparks of light next to the enormous alien vessels. Contact. In 30 seconds, reported Admiral Corex. The combined fleet that gathered at the edge of Zephyrian space was the largest military force in galactic history. Ships from dozens of worlds had answered the call: ALO, Croton battleships, Avix fighters, Thex support vessels, and hundreds of others. But the largest group by far was the human colonial navy. Marcus stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching through the view screen as more human ships arrived every hour. Most of them were not military vessels. They were cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining ships, even some private yachts. All of them had volunteered for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. "I still do not understand how this is supposed to work," said Admiral Corex, studying the tactical display. "We are outnumbered by at least 10 to 1. The enemy ships are larger, more advanced, and they have weapons that can unmake matter itself. That's why we're not going to fight them the way they expect," Marcus replied. "Admiral, what's the one thing every military leader is taught never to do?" "I assume you mean besides surrendering? Sacrifice your own forces unnecessarily. Of course. Any commander who wastes the lives of those under his command is not worthy of leadership." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. That's the difference between us and them. The Devourers see everything as resources to be consumed. Ships, planets, people, it's all just material to be reorganized. But humans?" He gestured at the view screen where hundreds of ships were taking their positions. "Humans see those ships as homes, as places where people lived and worked and raised families. And when someone threatens to unmake your home, you don't calculate the odds. You fight." Princess Lyrelay walked onto the bridge wearing the blue and silver uniform of a Zephyrian fleet officer. She had insisted on commanding one of the support squadrons, despite her mother's protests. "The human volunteers are in position," she reported. "All captains confirm they understand the mission parameters." "Which are?" asked Admiral Corex. Marcus turned to face the Zephyrian commander. "Simple. When I give the signal, every human ship in the fleet will activate their self-destruct sequences and ram the nearest Devourer vessel." The bridge went completely silent. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to pause. "You cannot be serious," said Admiral Corex finally. "Completely serious. Look, we tried fighting them with conventional tactics. That didn't work. We tried computer viruses. That worked once, but they've adapted. So now we try something no sane military commander would ever consider. Mass suicide, mass sacrifice. There's a difference." Admiral Corex looked like he was trying to understand a concept that was completely foreign to his thinking. "Captain Chen, those are civilians out there. Families, children, people with lives to live. You cannot ask them to throw their lives away." "I didn't ask them," Marcus replied quietly. "They volunteered. Every single one of them. When the call went out for ships to help evacuate the core worlds, these people came instead to fight. They know the odds. They know what I'm asking them to do, and they're here anyway. But why?" Marcus looked out at the fleet of mismatched ships holding formation around them. "Because it's the human way. When something threatens the people we care about, we don't run. We don't calculate survival probabilities. We stand up and fight, even if we know we're going to lose." A new voice came over the communication system. It was Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Navy, Auto, Marcus's cousin and the highest-ranking human officer in the fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Devourer fleet has entered sensor range. Estimated time to contact 22 minutes. Marcus activated his own communicator. "Admiral, what are we looking at?" "It's big, Marcus. Bigger than we thought. I count at least 800 Devourer vessels, some of them the size of space stations. And they're moving in perfect formation, all bow. These aren't scouts or probes. This is their main force." Admiral Corex stared at the tactical display as it updated with enemy positions. 800 ships. Our entire combined fleet is less than 300 vessels. "Numbers don't matter," said Marcus. "What matters is that we make them pay for every system they take. Show them that some species won't go quietly into whatever passes for night with these things." "Contact in 15 minutes, announced Admiral Chen. "All human vessels. Remember Awabwa, wait for the signal. Let them get close enough that our sacrifices count for something." Lyrelay took Marcus's hand. "Are you certain this will work?" "No, but I'm certain it's our best chance." He squeezed her fingers. "Lyrelay, if this goes wrong, it will not go wrong. And even if it does, we will face it together." The Devourer fleet was visible now, a dark cloud against the stars that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As they got closer, the individual ships became clear on the sensors. Massive vessels that looked like they had been grown rather than built, with surfaces that shifted and flowed like living metal. 10 minutes to contact, reported Admiral Chen. "All ships, prepare for engagement." Marcus opened a channel to the entire fleet human, Zephyrian, and everyone else who had come to make this last stand. This is Captain Marcus Chen. In a few minutes, we're going to face an enemy that has never been defeated, an enemy that sees us as nothing more than raw materials to be processed. They think we'll run when we see how outnumbered we are. They think we'll surrender when we realize how hopeless this fight is. They're wrong. He paused, looking around the bridge at the faces of beings from a dozen different worlds, all united by the simple idea that some things were worth fighting for. We're not here to win. We're here to show the galaxy that there are some species that won't be consumed quietly, that there are some people who would rather burn bright for a few moments than fade away into nothing. Today we fight not because we think we can win, but because this is who we are. 5 minutes to contact, announced Admiral Chen. Human vessels, arm self-destruct sequences, set detonation for maximum yield. The Devourer ships had spread out into an attack formation, their weapons beginning to glow with the strange energy that could unmake matter at the molecular level. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never encountered prey that fought back effectively. Contact in 60 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Enemy ships are charging weapons. Marcus took a deep breath. This was it. Either his plan would work, or they would all be consumed like every other species that had faced the Devourers, but at least they would face it on their own terms. All human ships, he said into his communicator. This is our moment. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. Show them what courage looks like. 30 seconds to contact. The Devourer weapons fired first, beams of energy that reached across space to touch the leading ships of the Allied fleet. Where the beams struck, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving empty space where ships had been moments before. Now, shouted Marcus, all human vessels execute. What happened next had never been seen before in the history of galactic warfare. Hundreds of human ships, from massive cargo haulers to tiny personal craft, activated their engines and flew directly at the Devourer fleet. No evasive maneuvers, no attempts to return fire, just straight-line courses toward the enemy vessels. The Devourers tried to destroy the incoming ships, but there were too many of them. For every human vessel that was unmade by their weapons, 2 more got through. When the ships reached their targets, their self-destruct sequences activated, releasing all their stored energy in brilliant explosions that lit up space like new stars. Direct hits on 17 enemy vessels, reported the tactical officer, his voice filled with amazement. Multiple Devourer ships are showing damage. But Marcus was already calling out the second phase of his plan. All remaining ships focus fire on the damaged vessels. Hit them while they're vulnerable. The combined firepower of the Zephyrian fleet, along with ships from dozens of other worlds, concentrated on the Devourer vessels that had been damaged by the human sacrifices. For the first time in recorded history, Devourer ships began to explode. It's working, shouted Admiral Corex. Their shields are down. We're getting through. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military records. The Devourers, used to facing enemies who tried to preserve their forces, found themselves fighting beings who seemed to have no regard for their own survival. Human ships continued to ram enemy vessels even as the Devourer fleet tried to adapt to this new form of warfare. Admiral Chen to all ships, came the voice over the communicator. The enemy is retreating from the outer sectors. Repeat, Devourer forces are pulling back. Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. Retreating? Are you sure? Confirmed. Approximately 200 enemy vessels have been destroyed or disabled. The remaining forces are withdrawing toward the galactic rim. Lyrelai stared at the tactical display, where the red symbols representing Devourer ships were indeed moving away from the core systems. They are running away. I cannot believe it. They are actually running away. No, said Marcus slowly, studying the enemy movement patterns. They're not running away. They're regrouping, learning. They've never faced an enemy that fought like this before, and they need time to figure out how to counter it. How long do we have? Asked Admiral Corex. I don't know. Maybe months, maybe years, but they'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for sacrifice tactics.